I ain't never told him, and I should. I know I should, but I can't. He hates me now. What if he knew the truth? I was a different kind of person when I was his age. Wasn't no slave on no plantation anywhere who hated slavery more than me. This was down in Alabama, where they got some of the meanest slave owners in this country. Slavery is so bad on some of the plantations down there that the Negroes don't pray for freedom, they pray for death. If they was free, they'd still have to live with the memories of all the things they'd seen, all the things that had been done to them. Death was the only thing that would give them peace. The plantation I was on was one of the worst. The overseer would put the lash on you if you thought you were thinking something he didn't want you to think. First time he put the lash on me, I was working in the fields. Don't know what I did or what he thought I did. I was putting cottonseed in the ground. Next thing I knew, pow! My back was burning up with the pain and it was wet. I knew that was blood, mine. He turned his horse around and went on back to the end of the row. This day, I don't know why he struck me with the whip, but I didn't need no reason. I wanted to kill him with my bare hands, and I knew I would if I had to look at that white pasty face the next morning. So that night I ran away. I'd overheard one of the old slaves say that you could be free if you followed the North Star, so that's what I tried to do. That meant I could only travel at night, which was the scariest time to be out and about. I didn't have nothing to eat, and it was early spring, which meant that there weren't any berries or anything like that to eat in the woods. I don't know what happened. I guess I just ended up walking around and around in a circle because the third day after I escaped, I found myself back in the woods at the edge of the plantation. I was tired, I was hungry, I needed water. I guess I just gave up. I came staggering out of the woods at the far end of the field. The old overseer saw me and he came galloping over on that big black horse of his and he took the whip to me right there. Pow! That whip wrapped itself around my body tight. The overseer pulled on it and it got a little tighter. I stumbled and the overseer started dragging me behind the horse. I guess I fainted because the next thing I remember I was being tied by my wrist to a tree limb on that big oak that sat in the master's front yard. The overseer whooped me until his arm was so tired he couldn't hold it up anymore. But I had fainted long before that. He left me hanging in the tree, and I might be hanging there still if not for Master Henfield. He was visiting my master, and when he saw me hanging by the wrist from that tree, he took pity on me. I never did get the story of how it went, but next thing I knew I was being cut down from the tree. Master Henfield was there looking down at me. He said, "Boy, your master say you a troublemaker, somebody what like to run away." I could barely keep my eyes open, but I know this was probably my one and only chance. I told him, "No, sir, I ran away because the overseer whooped me for no reason. That's why I run away. I'm a good Negro, massa. Yes, sir, Sampson's the best Negro there is." A few days after that, when I was well enough to travel, Master Henfield brought me here, and here's where I've been ever since. What Charles don't understand is that you can live better in slavery than you can when you're free, if you know how to treat white folks. As long as they think you got about as much sense as a rock, and you tell them how good they is, they'll do almost anything you want them to do. Mistress Henfield thinks she owned me, but I'm the one what own her. My boy don't seem to understand that. I gotta stay alert because he's liable to do something that will ruin everything for me, and I done worked too hard and too long to let some young fool ruin things for me. The Henfield Plantation Barn. It is late at night. Emmett and Joe are in the plantation barn. Outside, lightning flashes across the sky, followed by deep rumbles of thunder.
I got a bad feeling, Joe.
You're just scared, that's all. Everything's gonna be all right. Just think, Emma, this time tomorrow we're gonna be free.
I hope you're right. Where's Charles and Winnie? What's taking them so long? Maybe we should leave without them.
Don't worry, they be here. They probably had to wait until Samson fell asleep. Just then the door to the stable opens and Charles enters quickly, followed by Winnie holding the baby. See? Here they are. Sorry, I waited until Papa's snoring real loud.
Emma goes and hugs Winnie and looks at the baby. I fed him real good. He should sleep for a long time. Leastways, I hope he does. He's been real colicky of late.
Well, we best be on our way if we be going.
The barn door opens again, and Samson walks in, holding a lamp.
I'm afraid you're not going anywhere, boy, except on the auction block. Papa, what you doing here? Trying to save you. Thought you were asleep. You thought what I wanted you to think. I knowed you was up to something, and when you left tonight with Winnie and my grandbaby, I know there was only one thing you could be doing if you was taking them with you. I can understand these two getting a crazy idea in their head, but you, son, Mistress been good to us. Why you want to hurt her like this? I thought I taught you better than this. You supposed to be grateful for all she done for us. And what exactly she done that I'm supposed to thank her for? She a nice lady, Papa. And if what you mean by nice is she don't beat us, then you're right. She's nice. But she ain't nice enough to set us free. Free? What you know about being free? Freedom ain't all you think it is. I'll never know unless I try for it myself. Joe, Emma, Winnie, let's go. Time's a-wasting.
Charles sets out to move toward the door. Samson blocks his path. Charles tries to step around his father, and Samson moves to block his path again.
Papa, don't do this, please. Just step aside and let us pass. I'm sorry, Joe. Charles, it ain't that simple. What do you mean? Joe says, if we let him just step aside, he'll run and tell Mr. Senfield and we'll be caught before we off the plantation. You're right, Joe. I'm sorry, Papa. I'm real sorry.
Charles hits his father in the stomach, and as Samson bends over from the power of the blow, Charles hits him on the chin, knocking him down. The lamp drops from Samson's hand and onto the floor of the barn, which is covered with straw. Tears stream down Charles's face.
Please forgive me, Papa. Please forgive me.
As they hurry out of the barn and into the darkness, rain starts to fall. Charles sees smoke coming from beneath the barn door, and he starts to go back, but Joe grabs his arm.
We got to go. Now. Charles. Papa. Papa.
Joe pulls him, and they disappear into the darkness. Interlude 11. Mistress Henfield as an old woman. That night was the beginning of the end. I was awakened by the sound of the horses whinnying and the mules braying. I looked out the window and saw flames coming from the barn. Thank God it was raining. If it hadn't been, I would have lost the whole barn and all the horses and mules. I ran outside and started hollering for help, and the slaves came and got the horses and mules out. That was when they found Samson lying on the barn floor, moaning. He'd obviously been the first one to notice that the barn was burning, and had gone to get the horses and mules out, but had been overcome by smoke. Thank God they were able to drag him out, but he hasn't been the same since. In all that excitement, I had clean forgotten about Ruth. What if she had woken up and I wasn't there? I looked around at the slaves who stood mutely watching the fire. I didn't see Emma among them, but of course not. Emma's first thought would have been of Ruth, and she would have gone to her. But I hurried back into the house to be sure. The minute I stepped inside, I heard Ruth screaming at the top of her lungs. I ran upstairs, and she was standing in the doorway to my room, alone. I was disappointed in Emma, and if it hadn't been raining so hard, I would have gone to the slave quarters that night and reprimanded her for not having understood that her first thought should have been my daughter's well-being. The next morning, I understood everything. Of course, when I was awakened by Ruth's crying and calling for Emma. I went in and got Ruth, and when I got downstairs, everything was quiet. I went in the kitchen, still expecting to see Emma at the stove, and Joe standing by the hearth drinking coffee. The kitchen was empty. I felt like such a fool. I felt even more the fool when I went into the slave quarters to tell Charles and Winnie that they were going to have to work in the house now. But the cabin they shared with Samson was empty. To this day, I don't understand how they could have betrayed me like that. I wasn't mean to them. They ate well. I even let them earn a little money for themselves, and every slave has his own vegetable garden, and this was the thanks I got. Well, I wasn't going to wait around for the rest of my Negroes to run away, and I couldn't trust that they wouldn't. I sold every last one of them. Sold 'em to Jake Pendle, who didn't coddle his Negroes like I did. Oh, they begged me not to sell to him. They promised that they wouldn't run away, but how could I believe them? I sold them, the house, and the land to Jake Pendle, and moved down here to Nolans. I couldn't bear to sell Samson, however, and he is still with me. Even though he has been free since the war, he refuses to leave my side. It's too bad all the Negroes weren't as loyal as my Samson. Ruth grew up and was introduced into society. She married well, a banker who profits when cotton is selling and when it's not. No matter which way the wind blows, bankers always come out ahead. So I've been able to live out my days in comfort with my daughter and grandchildren. I've often wondered what happened to Emma, Joe, Charles, Winnie, and that little baby of theirs. Did they make it across the Ohio that night? I'm ashamed of myself for thinking this, but from time to time I hope that the boat that carried them across was swamped with water in the storm that night and went down, drowning them all, and whatever slave-loving white person helped them. But if they lived, if they got the freedom they went seeking, I hope they know that the other slaves paid the price for their freedom.
Interlude 12. Samson as an old man. I don't like being old, 'cause you have nothing but time to remember. When I look back, I don't see much worth remembering, but I remember just the same. The memory I think on the most is that moment when Charles hit me. It wasn't the blows that hurt me. Charles wasn't strong enough to do me any damage with his fists. It was that look on his face that knocked me to the ground and kept me lying there. I thought I'd been a good father to him. He was all I had after his mama died, giving birth to him. But that look on his face told me that he despised me, his own father. And if my own son despised me, then I had no choice but to think that my life had been despicable. And that was more than I could bear. I wanted my son to be proud of me, to look at me as someone he would want to be like. So I did the only thing I could do. I didn't tell Mr. Henfield that my Joe and the others had run away, that I had tried to stop them. I knew that if I did, she would have sent Jake Pendle after them, and if he caught them, he would have killed them all, including the baby. And I couldn't let that happen. After Mistress Henfield found out that they was gone, she said they must have set fire to the barn to provide a diversion so they could run away. It never crossed her mind that I might know more than I was saying. I just wish I didn't have to die, and my boy never know that my heart ain't like it was, that I did my part to help him and the others escape. If he knew, he'd be proud of me. I know he would.
Chapter 11. On the Road. Night. The rain comes down in torrents. Joe, Emma, Charles, Winnie, and the baby are hurrying quickly by the side of a road. Their heads are bowed against the stinging rain.
Charles says, "Do you know where you're going? We've been walking a long time. What if the white man lied to you? What if this is some kind of trick? Tell me again what Mr. Henry say." Joe says, "He say to walk along the big road until we hear an owl hoot 3 times. How are we going to hear an owl hoot the way this rain is coming down? We should go back now before Mistress finds out we gone. What if we go back now? She'll never know what we tried to do. What about your papa? He knows. If he ain't told Mistress already, he'll tell her come daybreak. We ain't got no choice. We got to keep going. I wish I hadn't let you talk me into this. Don't you be trying to blame me. Nothing but your own 2 legs brought you here."
It would be better if Charles would just say he's scared. Instead, he gets mad and tries to blame Joe. I'm scared too. We all scared. But we're out here cold and wet and tired with no idea of where we're going. Just walking through the darkness because a white man said he knew how we could be free. I don't want to think about what will happen to us if we don't get free. Mistress will have us whooped until we're close to death as a person can be and not be dead. Then she'll sell us to Jack Pendle. I'll kill myself before I let that man be my master. Emma, what's that? What? I didn't hear nothing. Up there, don't you see a light dancing in the darkness? Everyone stops and looks.
I see it, there. We gotta get out of here. That's a ghost. Who else will be out on a night like this except a ghost and a bunch of fools like us? It might be the patrollers. Quick. We gotta hide in the woods. Quick. Joe, Emma, Charles, and Winnie, holding her baby tightly to her chest, hurry off the road and into the trees. They watch anxiously as the light comes closer and closer. Joe is the first to recognize that the light is a lantern hanging from the side of a wagon and the hunched figure driving it. He hurries out of the woods and onto the road. Mr. Henry! Mr. Henry! The wagon stops. Is that you, Joe? Yes, sir, it's me. You must want to be free awful bad to come out on a night like this. I was just about to turn around and go back to town. I see you brought some more travelers. Yes, sir. Get in the back. We don't have much time, and you better pray that the folks from Ohio sent somebody across tonight to get you. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't. With all this rain, the river could be running too hard to make it across and back safely, and if that's the case, I don't know what we'll do.
The four climb quickly in the back of the carriage. Mr. Henry turns the wagon around and heads off rapidly in the direction from which he came. Mr. Henry is driving this wagon like the devil is after him. It bounces around so much, it's all we can do to not find ourselves bounced out on the road. We hold on to each other and try to keep our balance. Nobody says anything, but I know we're all thinking it. What if we can't get across tonight? What then? I reckon we could hide out in the woods, but by morning Mistress will probably have the dogs after us, and all the white folks will be on the lookout too. We have to get across that river tonight. We have to. Emma, what's the matter? My baby. What about him? He's so still. Emma takes the baby from Winnie's arms. She puts her ear to the baby's chest, and tears come into her eyes. I'm sorry, Winnie. No, Emma. No, not my baby. Not my